This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And we are just about there. You know it. NBA playoff time right around the corner. Just around the corner. So close to the corner, you might wind up knocking somebody on their side because you didn't realize how quickly the corner is going to turn. And we start talking about playoff basketball. But with that being said, that only means that the action gets hot and heavy, and teams that are jockeying to either get out of the play-in position or going to fall into the play-in position, they're gearing themselves up for an all-out war to the final stretch. We talked about this in last week's show, and as we carry this momentum into this week's episode, it'll only be magnified with the choice selection of discussion that we will have for you. So let me go ahead and roll out the red carpet to my right-hand man, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC, my man, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's good, Mr. Shaw? The excitement, obviously, is too much to contain. It's almost nuclear reactive. You know what I'm saying? Better get on your Chernobyl suits on, man, because, you know, it's going to get toxic very quickly now as we get down to this final stretch of games left.
Yeah, there's going to be some very sad fan bases as we close out the season here for sure, and some exuberant ones as well too. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this week's show, as we have been kind of over the last couple of weeks, as you alluded to. But this is, again, like I said, exactly what the NBA wanted. Lots of high-level drama. Teams that did not expect to be having to fight for their playoff lives or actually have to fight for their playoff lives. And this is what it's all about. So I'm excited to see how the final week of the NBA season plays out, because the next time we record, it will be the last day of the regular season, and we'll be doing probably a play-in preview, bro. So it's crazy, man. The NBA season is winding down, as you alluded to, and it's going to be really exciting.
A lot of bitching and moaning too. In this stretch, I don't know how many star players or veteran-laden players have expressed their dissatisfaction and malcontent regarding the play-in situation. And I know we've talked about it a little bit. But where are you when it comes to the players expressing this type of dissatisfaction? Because I don't know, maybe I'm just an old school dude. I just believe in the fact that if this is going to elevate people to be more competitive, then why are we complaining about this, right? Like, I get it. If the whole intent was that it was strictly money driven, all right, I feel where you're coming from. But even with NBA's best intended motives about it being about the money, this is supposed to elevate competitive play at the lower bottom echelon of the playoff picture, and the teams who struggle year in and year out, for them to find an opportunity, a chance for them to compete in the postseason. And so when I hear players complaining about that, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way, because it comes from a place where things have to continue to be easier for players, as if to say, well, we're the main attraction. We're the, we're the top brand. And, it should just be the way things were in an ever evolving sport like the NBA, where these guys are getting paid top dollar, no doubt. But the outcome and what's being put on the court at times is either redundant and quite honestly, it's not watchable. So, yeah. I don't mind if the NBA is trying to think in a way of their, putting themselves out of the box and trying to put us in a better position where we can appreciate teams fighting until the very end for something that may actually mean something to those organizations and their fan base.
You touched on something very important. The players want the game to evolve when it suits them, right? And the rest
that is exactly. That's the straight up. You gave them. I apologize. I took the turnpike. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I took the freeway to get to you down there, Shaw. Where you at? When I should have just took the turnpike. You just took the turnpike. You know what I'm saying? And got to my situation about a day shorter than where I was getting at. I appreciate that.
Nah, it's all good. I mean, really, it's funny because that everyone wants it how they want it, right? It needs to be as catered and as cookie cutter to my specific and individual situation. But the league is going to evolve, and the league is going to evolve. So you can't necessarily now be a purist and say, well, it just should be the 18s. That's how it's always been, and that's what it is. And what they did in the bubble, that was that was make believe, that was Mickey Mouse because that was a special situation. But we're trying to get back to normal now. But then you want all the other perks of the game trying to evolve at the same time. So I'm not really here for anyone who's complaining about it. And you can have your feeling. It's just, I'm just not really willing to listen to it one way or the other. It is what it is. If they change it back after this and for whatever reason, then that's what that is then too. Mm-hmm. But I think you got to rock with what you got right now. And guys like LeBron and Luka Doncic and Draymond Green and so forth, they've all complained when their teams look like they're about to be in the play-in. Draymond has kind of accepted life because his team, when he made his comments, his team was above the playing line. He's like, well, this is bullshit. We shouldn't have to be in. Now he's in the playing game and he's like, all right, you're not really saying this much because he has a chance to do that. Same thing with LeBron. Same thing with Luka. Luka looks like now they're probably out of that playing situation. And hey, you don't really hear them talking about it so much anymore. So play well and you don't have to worry about it. And if you don't, well, then, hey, you're at your own peril.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, so listen, and listen, we're not trying to, put anything on the players or whatever the case may be in that particular respect. For me, and I'm sure Shaw as well too, we hear the rumblings, right? And we see the little, snide, snarky remarks and the back and forthness about this whole thing. But again, what it belittles is the intention for us to continue to allow the game to evolve. I certainly don't want to concede to the idea that even when I believe that I'm an old school player, when it comes, or I'm an old school thinker when it comes to what I used to appreciate and like about the way that the game was played 10, 15, 20 years ago, that I don't appreciate the fact that even the NBA understands that what they're attempting to do and what they're trying to do, and they're not sugarcoating it. What they're attempting to do, what they're trying to do, they will not be able to do that with the old rules. So something has got to give. And I'm at least appreciative that they are being upfront about that. We're going to change it whether you like it or not. You're going to have to accept it. Other sports, not so much. Like you get it on the back end, you get hit upside the head with it, and you don't even like it, and it doesn't come out right. So at least this way, players know they got to step up, know that they got to play for keeps, be competitive, and this won't be an issue. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. Anyway, we have got a great show for you guys in this week's episode. And obviously, the focus is going to be on teams that are very much alive in this play-in and playoff picture. And with that being said, it definitely changes the dynamic of who we are actually mentioning as the top vote getters for the NBA awards. I mean, obviously, we're going to be talking about the name people, and we'll be doing that throughout the whole course of the third part of this NBA theatrical season. But what about the people who we know is not going to get that kind of shine? We are going to talk about some of those guys because we're expecting them, as their teams are getting themselves ready for that third season, for that third act, to play a very big part in how we label and how we identify them and where they're going to situate themselves for this part of the season. So be on the lookout for that in our subject of the breakdown. We're going to be talking about the honorable mentions, right? Those guys that probably are not going to get a whole lot of press, but their play is going to be recognized throughout, and we're going to miss the opportunity of saying these guys should have been reflected in said categories of the NBA awards, even though there's no chance of them winning it. All right, so we're doing it for the little guys this week. Also, we got some important news and notes to go over, so you don't want to miss out on that. We're going to get into that in a couple minutes. But as always, we got to do the plugs. Be sure to get my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA. Get at me at GameFace the show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Available on all the major platforms. You know where to find us. Look for the Baseline. Add us to your playlist. Allow us to be your go-to resource discussing the whole thing that's going on with the NBA. Also, be sure to check out our previous episodes by going to thebaselinenba.com. You can check out all the great interviews, all the great shows, the great banter, especially all the tidbits and the gems my man Shaw be dropping each and every single week. So be sure to check that out on thebaselinenba.com. All right, Shaw, let's get right into the news and notes. Let's, kind of carry through this here. Russell Westbrook, your boy, Mr. Triple Dubs. I mean, my man makes Cadillacs sound cool again. You know what I'm saying? Or he makes, like, you know what I'm saying, one of those cars that be rolling on them hydraulics, because my man be elevating up on them 22s and them triple Ds. You know what I'm saying? He's doing it again, and he has officially tied Oscar Robertson for the most triple doubles. He's obviously going to break that, no doubt. Quite an accomplishment for a player who, you know, back when he was first coming into the league, there was actually no place for a guy like Russell Westbrook. There was no belief that he was going to be the kind of player that he has elevated himself today.
No, you're right there. And I know Scott Brooks, obviously one of his biggest fans, who's coaching for the majority of Russ's career. He went out and made some pretty lofty statements as Russ was approaching Oscar here, saying that Russ will probably go down as the second greatest point guard. We don't necessarily need to tear Russ down, whether you think where he's going to stand ultimately in the history of the game in terms of point guards or players. That's not even what we're at here. Like, him getting to Oscar Robertson's triple-double record and averaging a triple-double for the fourth time in 5 years right now is just insane. It is absolutely insane. And hats off and salute to this guy who's just, he's battled, and people don't like his game. People don't like him. But not only are his triple doubles just impressive, but I think I saw a stat that his teams have won like 78% of the games that he's had triple doubles in. So they're not empty calorie stats. It's he's had to do what he's had to do to drag his team sometimes to victory. And what he's doing right now alongside Bradley Beal, who we'll talk about in a minute here, to get the Wizards into the play-in situation is nothing short of, and I mean this legitimately, legendary. Like, this is legendary type stuff.
It should be,
that Russ is doing.
It should be MVP worthy conversation, shouldn't it?
It should be, you know, and it's because they're so far down into the standings that no one's going to give a play-in team person like that, least of all Russell Westbrook, trying to get his team into play-in situation, that type of love. But it could be obviously said that he's the MVP of that team. Beal had been doing what Beal was doing, but it wasn't until Russ kind of went into overdrive here, into triple-double mode, to really put this Wizards team in the throes of the playoff conversation. So while I love Beal and think he's probably equally as important, it wasn't until Russ did what he did where the Wizards were able to get to where they're going to right now.
And let me say this. As much as I like Scott Brooks as a coach, I know a lot of people don't. I don't think people buy into Scott Brooks. They think that his coaching career was really lauded on the backs of Harden, Durant, and Westbrook. Those guys don't become the players that we are lauding right now without Scott Brooks, without what he showed those guys during the early parts of their career, right? So I challenge anybody to try and make me think that some other coaches probably would have got what we're getting out of these type of players. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I just do. You know, you can clearly see when certain players, man, their ascension puts them in a different path about how they're going to go about, you know, kind of, you know, showing their success in the NBA, you know, what kind of players they're going to be. Some guys have carved their own destiny, no doubt. You could put them with any coach. Could be one of the worst head coaches and he makes them look good. And you could put him with one of the best head coaches and he makes them look bad. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that when players rely on counseling, advice, and maybe even to some degree, like fathering, you know, a player when he don't know jack, you know what I'm saying, wet behind the ears, you know, breath smelling like Similac, as our man Stephen A. will say, you have to think about, hey, what kind of impact did that head coach have on him? So I will always say that Scott Brooks has had an indelible impact on Russell Westbrook's career. Where I disagree with Scott Brooks is him going out and saying something like that, because I just believe that he misses the mark on the importance of what the point guard position is supposed to mean. I think Russell Westbrook changed the way that we look at what the point guard position and all the responsibilities that come with it, because the expectations are that they should just basically be floor generals, or they should basically score points. And here you have a guy like Russell Westbrook who basically does all of the things that most point guards are not doing right now and don't do it consistently. He's able to do it, and he is able to do it effortlessly. So I'll probably go out on a limb to say, if I had to correct Scott Brooks, I would say that Russell Westbrook will probably go down as the most gifted, athletically gifted point guard we've ever seen in our lifetime, right? Because for him to do the things that he's been doing and to be able to listen, he's definitely shooting the basketball a hell of a lot better than he first came into the NBA doing. That doesn't happen without him putting in that hard work and him changing his game and him still being able to jump over the top like he does. I just feel like maybe not the second best point guard ever to play the game, but definitely the most athletically gifted player I think I've ever seen, to be doing it for as long as he's been doing it, and to be doing this triple-double rate in the fashion that he's doing it in such a quick turnaround, to your point, like, the last 3-4 years, to me, it just speaks volumes on Russell Westbrook and the imprint that he'll have when he finally walks off the court.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people will give Russ maybe his due as a kind of basketball genius leader at the point guard position. A lot of what he does is on sheer will, grit, and hustle. That's who the dude is. And that's why a lot of people are detractors, saying, well, when he's not able to be as athletically explosive as you've alluded to, what will his game look like? And I guess we'll see when we get there. But for right now, he is, again, one of the greatest to ever do it. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. And however you want to classify him, in whatever kind of mode or mantra or category that you want to put Russ in, make sure you put Hall of Famer and hustler at the end of it, at his name, or whatever it is. Say what you want to, but he's going to be there, and he's putting up legendary stats, as I alluded to a little earlier. So congrats to him. And by the time this show airs, he probably will have beaten and overtook Oscar Robertson for that triple-double record, and he will be the bar which that record is going to be mentioned by, or be measured by, moving forward.
Well, it's going to have to happen, because I think for the Wizards to secure their position, it's going to be based on what Russell Westbrook can give you down this final stretch of games, and obviously where the status is going to be for Bradley Beal, as that is the next point of conversation. Bradley Beal is questionable for the rest of the regular season. Look, when we made our predictions about the Washington Wizards, remember, Shaw, I said the Washington Wizards have the most favorable schedule coming down the stretch. They have obviously taken advantage of that and have repositioned themselves very nicely that they're going to be participating in this play-in situation if all things go well. But now, knowing that your second and essentially your best player, because I think when it comes to who you want shooting that basketball down the stretch, who's going to consistently give you 35, 40 points in his sleep, Bradley Beal is not going to be on the basketball court. Russell Westbrook going to have to be dangerous. Like, he's going to have to channel, you know what I'm saying, his Russell Wilson like in tendencies in order to elevate the Wizards and keep them in this situation.
Yeah, that's really tough as we recorded now, overtook the Pacers for the 9th spot. I mean, they still play the Pacers in the play-in game, so it's just a matter of they have home court advantage tentatively in that matchup. So a 9-10, with the Pacers looking more likely than ever, but they would need Beal to be able to ensure that they get it done, and then to have a chance, as I think they would. No one's going to be excited for them, as I've said many times. No one's going to be excited to see those two guys coming together, even if they are on the road in a first-round series versus Brooklyn, Philly, or whoever in Milwaukee, whatever it ends up being. But I'm excited for the prospects of the Wizards, as long as you allude to they can stay healthy. Beal needs to be there for them to really try to make some noise in this situation.
All right, now, another milestone being hurdled, Dwight Howard. Obviously, he spends a lot of his time coming off the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers, backs up Joel Embiid. He passes Walt Bellamy for 11th all-time on the rebounding list. It's interesting, Saul, because there was a point where I think we wanted to speak very glowingly about Dwight Howard and the pace at which he was basically building his career off of, right? And I just think everything just took a turn for the worse after Los Angeles, right? After him moving to the Los Angeles Lakers. I think had he stayed with the Orlando Magic, all of like these little bullet lines would have been, 4 or 5 years earlier. His career path has just gone so wayward. While I am appreciative and happy for Dwight Howard to put himself in this position, it just really kind of highlights where his career is now at this point and where his importance is going to be for the Philadelphia 76ers. Because him passing Walt Bellamy, again, should have happened years ago. And the fact that, maybe some injuries attributed to it, but definitely his mentality and his approach and the way that he saw the game, he saw himself to the team and things of that nature, really stymied the pace that he was on. I think if we actually projected him back when he was with Orlando, his ass would have been probably like top 5 already now when we're talking about in the rebounding conversation. And for him now, I'm just hoping that he cracks the top 10 because he was always that type of basketball player. He was always that type of front court player of excellence. You know, that was the trajectory that I saw him being on. And the fact that he's just now getting to 11th, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a while, I think, maybe before we see him get to 10th. And I don't know how many years left that he's still got in the tank with his body and the way that he's being played right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to take anything away from him in it, but I think you do have a point where had he had a Dirk-like career where he just wanted to be on that team and fade gracefully, if you will, how Dirk did with Dallas or something like that, then maybe, yeah, you're right. These numbers and record books would have been were in his rear view a long time ago, but it is what it is, where he wanted to move around. He wasn't happy with the Orlando situation. The LA thing didn't really work out. The Houston thing didn't really work out. Then he was in Washington. He was in Charlotte for a while as well too. So, and then now back to the Lakers, and now, over here, back in the Eastern Conference with Philly. So he's bounced around for sure, but you just can't take anything away from what he's done throughout the course of his career. He was dominant for a good 4 or 5 year stretch there specifically, and he's always been able to maintain his rebounding and his blocking and his overall defense when it comes to patrolling the paint. So while he has always hasn't had the greatest of mentalities and outlooks when it comes to what his role is going to be, still a top-level talent in the NBA. And again, same thing. It's going to be a Hall of Famer when all is said and done.
Absolutely. And then speaking of another accomplishment in the books, notch it up to what's already going to be a Hall of Fame career, Carmelo Anthony moves 10th onto the all-time scoring list. Again, I don't want to, be, a broken record here. It sucks because what we saw from Carmelo Anthony just before he got blackballed, essentially, is what we want to call it. Dude would have already been in 10th. This, however, is not on Carmelo Anthony. I just think it's just the NBA. I just think that the way that teams looked at Carmelo Anthony in such a way that, it is one of the things that does piss me off about the league and these organizations and these general managers and these owners and what they're trying to do. I think that you make Carmelo Anthony an easy target for your ineptitude of putting together a team that should be out there competing. And when you have a quality player like Carmelo Anthony who can help you, you can't find a way to utilize that guy. It's not Carmelo Anthony's fault. That's your fault, right? So the fact that he's hitting 10th, I'm happy for him. But again, the NBA, I think, effed up on this because his ass should have been playing a lot more for some of these other teams that desperately needed a player like Carmelo Anthony. And despite what people are going to say, Carmelo Anthony, his attitude, he's a ball hog and you can't build around that guy, whatever. Look, man, we're seeing the same type of nonsense going on with some of these teams right now. We can name them if we really want to, but that's not the whole point of this show. I just hope that the NBA learns its lesson in these things. You just don't shelve a guy like Carmelo Anthony, much less the same way that we saw what happened with Allen Iverson and on the back end of his career, man. There are players that still deserve to be on that court if they prove that they are an NBA and can contribute. Like that's how it should be. And the fact that we have to have this conversation too late in the game for a legendary player like Carmelo Anthony kind of just ticks me off.
I understand that for sure. And he played a role in his own demise, I think, like Dwight did. I think I wrote an article some years ago when they were both searching for jobs and said, look how the mighty truly have fallen. But it probably was too much. It was too much where they were ostracized and nobody wanted to take a chance and the whole nine. Should they be playing on minimum deals and all that type of stuff? Probably not. I mean, they're contributors to their team. It just took a while for them to understand what the roles needed to be in each situation that they eventually went into. But I am happy for Melo. His Portland Trailblazers team loves him. They welcome him in that locker room. They're excited that he's accepted the role. And while the Blazers were struggling and now playing pretty good basketball again, it's a testimony to what Melo brings to that locker room as well, too, to help Dame keep it balanced in some ways, too. So shouts to Melo, again, Hall of Fame career for sure. And we'll see where things take him. And I'm sure he's excited about trying to get into the playoffs with the Blazers this season.
Absolutely. All right, now, again, bad news for the New Orleans Pelicans. They just can't catch a break. Zion Williamson's out indefinitely. We said it before, Shaw. We didn't see the New Orleans Pelicans, putting themselves in a position to participate in this year's NBA. Well, there were some predictions, right? Like we thought that they would be good enough certainly with what we've seen from Williamson, obviously there's a potential there, but he can't stay healthy. Even with Ingram, that team still just looks like there are a couple pieces still far from putting themselves in a position to be doing this consistently with the likes of the Grizzlies and all these other teams that I think have certainly improved. What do you do now if you're Zion Williamson, you're out indefinitely, and what do you do if you're the Pelicans from this point forward? I mean, I know don't concede into the season, but they're definitely not getting into the play-in. How do you move this ball forward for this team? Because clearly the clock is now ticking on how much expectations have been placed on the greatness of Zion Williamson and him being a part of a losing franchise. They're going to look at him the same way they looked at Anthony Davis. How much longer does he want to continue to stay in a situation where that team is still not going to be good enough to be participating in playoffs? And should he consider leaving and going elsewhere, taking his talents to other teams?
Yeah, I don't know. I find that really, really difficult to answer, to be honest with you. Because I think he's had a good year. New Orleans didn't. And at this stage, with whatever it is, 5-6 games left to go, the Pelicans just have no reason to try to rush it. So them even saying he's out indefinitely is kind of weird because like 5 games left. So it's like, well, is he out for the season? Just call it. But they don't want to do that. Griff went on our tirade and saying, he's not officiated correctly. He had to pay a $50,000 fine, because basically, I guess the mantra here is that maybe Zion got hurt with the many fouls and the physical abuse that he ends up taking because he's so physical and strong himself that referees are starting to, ignore the contact that he received, similar to Shaq and LeBron in those early years and things of that nature. True or not, that's not even for us to judge. I think at this point, the Pelicans just need to make sure he's right. The season is pretty much a wash, I'd say. I think he showed more than acceptable growth, but it is really about what the rest of this franchise is going to look like and the roster around him. So I think that starts with, Lonzo Ball, moving him around and seeing what they can get for that and some sort of sign and trade and seeing if Ingram can take a next step. I don't think Ingram was quite as good as he was last year. I mean, I know he wasn't, and Zion definitely surpassed him as the Pelicans thought he would. But this Pelicans team still has a lot of great talent on it and should be better moving into next season.
I'm going to say this real quick when it comes to Zion Williamson. And I think I harken back to, where, our boy Nunzio, has said, like, he buys into, and I'm sure he still buys into Zion Williamson. He thinks that Zion Williamson is the real deal. And I don't have any doubt. I think that Zion Williamson certainly can be and is shown to be the real deal. But I think people need to stop trying to put him in this conversation about, he's not getting calls the same way that Shaquille O'Neal wasn't getting calls or whatever the case may be. Zion Williamson's game right now is nowhere near what you're seeing, what we saw from Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like the way that they're using Zion to me is a recipe for him to be susceptible to a ton of different injuries. Not even some of the injuries that Shaquille O'Neal probably suffered, which he didn't really suffer until later on, which kind of tells you, the workout regimen or, the durability that we did see from Shaquille O'Neal, even in his beginning seasons when he was just punishing everybody and getting pulverized and, Shaq attacked, by other bigs and things of that nature. Zion Williamson definitely probably should get those calls, but it means nothing because to me, him being used as a point forward means that the injuries that he is leaving himself open to are not just the same injuries that you get that other front court players get. The fact that he has to laterally move, side to side instead of north and south, and he's got to cut, and he still has to dribble, drive, and, he's accelerating, deaccelerating. He's doing a whole lot of things that the guys like Shaquille O'Neal and maybe to some degree LeBron James kind of wasn't doing until he started playing in an up-tempo type pace and really taking that point forward position to another level. If you're already starting a guy like Zion Williamson at that level and you're seeing him, being susceptible to these type of injuries, it's clear that his body is not built for that kind of, punishment. Unfortunately, that's what it is. It's self-inflicted punishment because as talented as he's going to be, it's going to be in spurts. It's not going to be over the duration of the kind of NBA career that we're seeing LeBron James show us. Do you really think that Zion Williamson is investing money in his body the same way that LeBron James is doing right now? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I get where people are coming from, and it's a shame that he's always getting injured like this, but I don't think you should be surprised by it because the way that he's being used is leaving himself open to these type of injuries, and they're not just nagging injuries. These are going to be injuries that are going to be, moving forward, expect this to be the norm. This is what it's going to be. So if you're the Pelicans, hey, maybe you really need to think about this type of investment of having him be the point forward and where his body is situated and what he's doing for you right now, if it's going to be sustainable for the long term.
I mean, those are harsh words, bro. I mean, I don't know if I'm there with you on it.
I know you aren't there with me on it. You say it because I know you ain't there with me on it.
I don't think you're saying it's his fault, so to speak, but some of the way he plays, but he's still learning how to play the game. He's 19, 20 years old. So he's got to learn how to play differently and eventually find a way to preserve his body. I mean, all the things he gets credit for in terms of all his paint scoring and getting in there, well, that's going to cause him to have that physicality. And the same thing LeBron had in the early part of his career when he didn't have any semblance of a jump shot. So you have to build on those things, get those things, add them to your toolbox and repertoire, utilize them over the course of the next coming seasons, and that will hopefully, in essence, reduce the wear and tear in your body. But if we're 5-6 years down the line and he's still like, all right, just getting in the paint, then, that's going to be an issue. I mean, we're even seeing Giannis now, to some degree, trying to shoot the three a little bit better and shoot, and be involved and not be as ball dominant as Zion has had to be. But still, Zion is younger than Giannis and both LeBron. And, it's going to be a growing process for David Griffin and Van Gundy over there to kind of get that situation correct.
All right. Well, listen, they experimented this with Anthony Davis. I hope that they learned from the results of what that meant during those years that they had Anthony Davis and what we as the NBA fans and also what the NBA was deprived of because Anthony Davis really could not stay healthy, right? And so I'm saying you got another shot here with a guy like Zion Williamson, right? And if you continue to use him the way that you're using him because you believe in what he's doing, be prepared. That's all I'm saying. And we should be prepared. We should be prepared. Like, we should not be acting like, oh my God, and then thinking, that's just me. Like, to me, this is a sign of the trend, right? And I think we tend to ignore it because we're still enthralled in what we've seen from Zion Williamson and what we think he could potentially bring. But what comes with it is what we're seeing right now with Zion's ability to not be healthy, right? And I think there may have to be some time being invested in trying to get him that way if we want him to be on the court for an extended long time. Finally, Shaw, Zach LaVine, he returns for the Chicago Bulls. What is it? Not a moment too soon? What are we talking about his impact for the remaining games for Chicago?
It's probably 2 or 3 games too late. I mean, it was a COVID situation, so there's nothing much he could do with it. They were able to, wallop the Celtics over the course of the weekend. Got another nice win as well too. But it just seems like they're probably out of the runnings to maybe catch Indiana unless the Pacers just fall flat on their face. But it's great that Zach is back. They made the move to get Vucevic because they wanted to get a chance to be in this play-in situation, and man, they're there. They're not dead just yet, but LaVine's return is probably, like I said, a couple of games too late ultimately.
All right. Well, listen, a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of good conversation. I'm glad that you disagree with me, Shaw. We just obviously cannot have a show where you agree with me all the time.
Well, I mean, this is why we have the show, right? You have your opinions and I have mine, and we'll let the fans and our listeners decide kind of who's right or just what side they want to take on it, one way or the other. I don't even know if we can prove if anyone's right or wrong, and this is just all a matter of opinion. So I think that's a great and interesting take you have on Zion there. I do disagree or don't necessarily know if I can subscribe to all the points, but this is why we have the show, bro, the baseline, keeping it pushing.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the honorable mention awards. The guys that we know probably won't get their shine in these NBA awards. However, we're going to give them their shine. Maybe we should call it the baseline, right? Like this is at least the baseline minimum of where we should be starting when it comes to these guys receiving the awards. So maybe we should actually start, everybody's got their own awards and want to match their awards up with the NBA awards. The NBA awards are the NBA awards. How about the baseline awards? This is the foundation. This is where we start bottom up, right? Move from the bottom and work our way up because that's how we roll. All right, we'll talk about the honorable mentions here on the baseline.
Time to break it down.
Time now for the breakdown. Callie Warrenshaw, baseline. And we're doing honorable mentions, Shaw. So let's not dilly-dally with it, right? This is the baseline awards. This is where we start. This is the inaugural season of the baseline awards. So baseline executive of the year, okay? You have selected Leon Rose for the New York Knicks. I'm interested as to why you're going that route with Leon Rose being the baseline for executive of the year. You don't buy into the fact that he probably should be considered as a top 3 executive for what the New York Knicks are doing?
I don't know if it's not about me buying it. I just don't think the narrative is there for him. And I could be wrong. And I think this is what, as we kind of said in the outset, the purpose of this is for where we think these guys are going to fall within it comes to the voting. And top 5 is kind of, for pun intended, the baseline where they'll all say, all right, well, these guys were legitimate candidates. And I don't think I've heard Leon Rose's name mentioned one time for anything. Ever. It's just nothing. He's just kind of doing his thing. Thibs for sure, but Rose and what his role with how the Knicks have been successful, not so much. You hear all about what's going on in Phoenix. You even hear a little bit now, even what's going on in Atlanta as they've made a late surge. Obviously, what people are thinking about with the Lakers and the Clippers coming into the season, even Denver, et cetera, et cetera. All the teams that were expected to do what in essence some of them are doing, with the exception of maybe the Lakers. But the Knicks were just kind of out of nowhere, and all the credit is really kind of going to Thibs and obviously Julius Randle. And that's not to say they don't share the credit, but Rose, I think, has done a lot to garner where this Knicks team is. And I just personally haven't heard his name mentioned. So for me, definitely honorable mention, if nothing else. Maybe he gets into top 5 of voting, when all is said and done. But that's why I picked him, because I hadn't heard anything mentioned, not even a sniff of Leon Rose's name across my media channels.
All right, I get where you're coming from, because I was going to get ready to light your ass up by even conceiving. Like, I felt like it was almost a cop-out, because I just think Leon Rose is definitely going to be a top 3 candidate. It's interesting. I think 2 of the top 3 candidates are going to be coming out of the Atlantic Division. I think that Elton Brand probably is going to wind up being executive of the year when it's all said and done. I just do. Listen, head coach, and look at the players that he's put on that team. The Philadelphia 76ers are probably going to come out as the best team in the Eastern Conference if all the other teams don't think that there's a realistic shot to chase them, okay? Yeah, you probably can make the argument that Sean Marks will probably get it, or
Dennis
Lindsey. Yeah, no, I'm not saying
James Jones.
I'm not saying.
That's what I'm saying. I can't see Rose getting in the top 3 with those other names there. Like Lindsey and Jones have 2 teams in the top of the Western.
Well, no,
Conference,
I'm gonna
hardest conference there is.
I understand, but I'm gonna challenge you on Lindsey in the sense that this is not significant moves that Lindsey's made for the 2021 season. These are moves that have now come to fruition from what Lindsey's done over the last 2-3 years. This is just players now elevating themselves to the next level, to where the Utah Jazz are being in this conversation. And I also say the same thing with the Denver Nuggets, right? I'm just saying that the moves that were made for this NBA season, for this upcoming NBA season, it's hard that you don't put Leon Rose in that conversation, because he was able to put together a team, and he also hired the right coach, where a team that we thought was probably going to be at best a 25-win season team is now the 4th best team in the NBA Eastern Conference. And that, to me, cannot be ignored. Much less the same thing with Elton Brand. We thought that the Philadelphia 76ers had to continue to strip this team down, and instead Elton Brand adds on Doc Rivers, and he's also added Seth Curry. He's added on I'm losing Danny Green.
But I mean,
I'm just saying.
I think the thing with that too is, I don't know, with Phoenix. With Philadelphia, it's probably more Morey than anything else, since he's kind of a usurped brand in terms of the hierarchy there.
Okay.
So if Philadelphia is going to get it, it's more likely going to be Morey.
So is it
anybody
internal
else.
cancelization? Is that what you're saying? But you're saying it's an internal cancelization on why we would not acknowledge him to be in the conversation of an executive of the year because of the Morey move. Wouldn't the
Morey would get the award if the award was being out?
I'm sorry, my apologies if I'm mentioning Elton Brand, but it's okay. But what I'm saying is that Morey would not be in that conversation then. Like it wouldn't play for these kind of moves that were being made for the Philadelphia 76ers to be where they are. That he wouldn't be considered at all. So in other words, he would be down where I'm talking about. He would be baseline.
It's possible, but that's what I'm saying. Are you making my point or your point? Because if you throw Morey into that conversation, Lindsey and Jones are in the top 5, hands down. You can forget it. Those guys are getting in the top 5 of this vote. So then if you have Morey, do you think Morey's done more than what Leon Rose has done? And again, I can see maybe Rose sneaks in as 4 or 5. I just feel like I haven't heard enough about him. Why I was like, well, hey, I want to give him some love one way or the other, because I don't know if he's going to get into that top 5. And, top 5, maybe it doesn't matter to him. The Knicks have bigger fish to fry, but that's where I'm at with it. I don't see him, definitely not in the top 3. I don't see there's no chance of that.
I mean, well, I'm saying that I see him in the top 3 because I'm not considering guys like Lindsey, right? Who again, when I just look at the moves, like how many moves did they make to do what they're getting from their team? I just don't think there was enough moves. I'm not saying that that's bad. Sometimes no moves at all. it's good, for a team who we think is supposed to be an upper echelon team. I'm just saying moves had to be made to elevate a team, and certainly the New York Knicks did a hell of a lot in the offseason to put themselves in this position. And I don't know. All right, who I chose. And it's funny because you mentioned Lawrence Frank. I feel like Lawrence Frank doesn't get enough conversation or doesn't get enough press. And he probably is going to be down in the, he wouldn't be considered as top 5. But if you look at what the Clippers are doing and you look at how he's filled that roster and made the, mid-season moves to really kind of solidify the team that they're going to have to work with going forward to try to make this run for a championship, I would say, hey, you got to start putting his name in there, right? Because if people are not taking the Los Angeles Clippers seriously, they should. It's not just because of Kawhi Leonard and because of Paul George. It's because of the players that they do have around them that you can actually buy into the fact that they're not going to allow what happened to them last year happen to them this year. So that's where I'm at. But as I have the funniest thing is I wanted to put Tommy Shepard in this conversation. And the reason why I do that is because you really have to be a mad scientist to buy into the idea that you wanted to put together Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal as a combination to be challenging in the Eastern Conference. And if the Washington Wizards pull this off and this team winds up playing in the play-in situation where they are, they could very much be a very dangerous and exciting basketball team to watch in the third act of the NBA season.
I don't disagree. I mean, you know where I'm at with the Wizards as it stands. I think if the Wizards were somehow able to pull off a first-round upset, but voting would have already taken place by the time that would actually happen. So, but I have no problem with giving Shepard some flowers here as well too. Especially again, we're just talking about honorable mention.
Do you prefer tulips?
No chance of actually winning.
Do you prefer tulips or lilies if you want to give them? Okay. All right, let's move on. Coach of the Year, Shaw. You have.
I got my man Taylor Jenkins from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think we talked about the Grizzlies a little bit last week, I think it was, and how we wrote them off with Ja Morant getting injured, and now they're in the play-in situation and playing very well. And the fact that Jenkins has really held this team together, it really is just a committee of whoever. I wrote an article recently and I was looking, I was like, God, they really it doesn't matter. They're so unselfish. They're always one of the top under Jenkins. They've always been a top 5, top 6 team when it comes to assists. I know he's only been there 2 years, but Ja is a unselfish superstar or emerging superstar, I should say. So he's led them in scoring. Valanciunas has led them in scoring at one point. Dylan Brooks has led them in scoring. But then you look down the line, you have, guys like Bane and Grayson Allen, all the guys like that, even my man Slow-Mo, they've all taken turns of leading this team and scoring at different times. So you can never really know where it's coming from. And I think that can be a good thing to the Grizzlies' advantage, because they just play a great team style game of basketball and really believe in each other. And Taylor Jenkins has done a nice job in getting this team to where they're at. And I don't know if they'll get into the playoffs one way or the other, but I think the fact that they've done it the way that they've done it and are right here with a great opportunity this year yet again, it's definitely proof positive of the coaching job he's done there. So not much love going his way, but we'll throw him some love here on the baseline.
Yeah, man. I like the pick with Taylor Jenkins. And I also like the fact that he seems to just really bring out, the best of guys that I don't know if whether or not on other rosters they would be getting any shine or any play time. Like Grayson Allen, like the fact that he is actually a legit player in the NBA speaks volumes. And I think that that's the work that he puts in to get those guys to execute. They're not gonna get a lot of love on other teams, right? Like in the way that people I think really appreciate what you're seeing from how Taylor Jenkins is coaching these guys up. But that to me is part and parcel why I respect what he's doing. And I hope it trends where Memphis is going into that direction where they should be that team that people don't want to talk about, but damn it, they're going to have no choice but to talk about them because they're just playing good, well-rounded team basketball. So my pick is going to be James Borrego because I honestly did not expect to see the Charlotte Hornets to be as good as they've been. What he's been able to get out of these guys, I feel like is just phenomenal. The fact that the Charlotte Hornets have been competitive while they didn't have their best player, LaMelo Ball, which I can't even believe I'm saying LaMelo Ball was basically, their best player because he's a rookie. How he's been able to kind of juggle the guard situation with Graham and Rozier, I think has been truly phenomenal. And the fact that the Charlotte Hornets are really, in the playoff situation as it stands, I think speaks volumes. I wish it was Pop, though. Unfortunately, the Spurs have taken a couple steps back over the last week. But if you were to ask me about a coach of the year who's probably not going to get any discussion or talk, what Greg Popovich has done for the San Antonio Spurs, I think has been phenomenal. I just don't think it's enough where I wouldn't select James Borrego over him. But I want to make sure that Pop gets some love as well, too, because he has done a phenomenal job coaching that team to be competitive, even after they gave up on LMA. And I think people gave up on the Spurs once they gave up on LMA as well.
Yeah, it's funny. We're kind of scraping the bottom of the play-in and playoff tournaments here when it comes to our selections. But Borrego definitely done a great job, I think, even since getting there and balancing this lineup, as alluded to, with the various injuries. I mean, like literally a bunch of injuries, and they're still right here. I don't think a team like Boston, who they'd probably be matched up with right now, is going to be excited about that matchup in the play-in game. So I think Borrego's done a great job. So I think that's an excellent selection.
All right, let's talk most improved. You were favoring, you love you some Grizzlies, man. I don't know what it is. Excuse me. Like I'm almost getting the hiccups over this, but you are on some Grizzliness. You know what I'm saying? You're on your Grizzy. So talk to us. Why do you have Jonas Valanciunas as your most improved?
He's just not, again, he's not going to get any conversation at all. It's very upper echelon right now. And in some ways it should be. Julius Randle has probably won the award by most people's accounts by now. For a while, Jeremy Grant, people were touting him. Chris Boucher had some swag for a minute. Ironically, the team we just talked about that you just, talked about with Borrego, I think Rozier could be in this conversation for me as the honorable mention guy, in that situation, especially as one of my former young sons. But Valanciunas has just been doing it, bro. Like he just really has. And it's kind of one of those things. Remember, he used to get played off the floor in the fourth quarter, wouldn't see the minutes. They've held it together a lot because of his rebounding and his defensive presence in there, especially without Jaren Jackson for a good majority part of the season. I just think career highs in points and rebounds and just overall minutes and just what he's doing. I'm a big fan of Valanciunas, and I know he's not going to get a semblance of a vote for this conversation, maybe outside of Memphis. So for me, he's my honorable mention, most improved, Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ivica Zubac, and the reason why I say that is because the focal point is obviously on George and Leonard as far as taking the Clippers where, the Clipper fan base and everybody out there who isn't a Lakers fan wants to see the Clippers become, which is an Western Conference finalist, and eventually going to some kind of NBA finals down the road. But if you really think about it, man, they need an extra piece. And I don't know where they think that piece is going to probably come from, but if they're going to get the kind of output that they're getting from Zubac, and I know it's only reflected within a prism because, again, the focal point is on their two best players on the court. But Zubac leads in offensive rating, right? He's like he leads in true shooting percentage. Now, he's a big man, so of course it's the attempts and the numbers are not going to be as great because the volume obviously shifts to Leonard and to George. But he makes the shots when he counts. He's on the court a lot more than he's been probably ever in his career, which means that there is a reliance. Tyronn Lue really relies on having Zubac on that basketball court, and so does the rest of the team. And I just feel like these are things that are not going to be you're not going to be able to statistically put in this prism to identify, to say he's so most improved. But these improvements are, to me, critical things for us to be talking about. Do the Clippers have an opportunity to be one of those teams? And it's based on the guys that you have on the court. and those guys have to improve. And what I've been seeing from Zubac, and I think you're seeing it as well too in the way that the Clippers are playing, they are now relying on Zubac to get him key baskets. They're relying on him to be on the court and to be a ball stopper in the paint at times, right? Like, he is proving himself to be a very valuable piece. Could very well be the third best player that the Clippers are going to need for this stretch. And I think that it's going to get overlooked. He's not going to get the same kind of conversations and discussions and stuff like that. I like Zubac, man, in this conversation, the most improved, because he's just continually getting better, and I think he's becoming more relied upon to be a key piece for the Clippers to be taken seriously if there's any chance for them to make this run, this and moving forward.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that at all. It's interesting because you talk about a guy who's not going to get any type of love whatsoever. It's definitely going to be Zubac, especially since he's not always playing in the fourth quarter of games right now. And a lot of what he's done this year has been, I'm not trying to be a detractor, but it's because Ibaka has also been hurt. Right. So he's been pressed into action maybe more than the Clippers would have ordinarily liked. But they're making it work, and I think that's definitely a credit to Zubac and what the Clippers are doing around him as well too. So again, I think it's an interesting selection. But I have no issue with it at all because I think Zubac is improving big for sure.
Can I throw out an interesting thought though, Shaw? Why not Russell Westbrook? Right? Like, I know this award would be so belittling of an MVP caliber player, but if you really think about it, Shaw, Russell's numbers have struggled over the last couple of years, and I mean, there's reasons for that. Obviously, COVID, and the circumstance of what was going on when he was in Houston and everything like that. But I mean, if he takes his numbers and he puts himself in a position where he's improved from the previous season to do what he's been doing now, where he is basically a triple-double type player, right? And I'm saying that, like, these numbers now are not MVP-ish, but they certainly can be considered as improved, right? And what he's doing is certainly helping to improve the Washington Wizards and their chances to be participating in the playoffs. Why would we not consider a guy like Russell Westbrook? Maybe I'm just, contorting the whole idea of what's considered as most improved. But I'm just curious, like, why would we not put him in that conversation?
Too established. Just a former MVP is never going to win Most Improved Player. Like, that'll never happen in the history. So he can win it on the baseline.
That award is beneath me. It's like, that's what that basically sounds like. Like, Russell, yeah, you can give it to someone else. I'm feeling charitable this year. That's just what that feels like.
Yeah, there's no chance. Like, no chance at all.
All right.
Like I said, it's a nice sentiment.
Sixth man of the year. Late entry. Pump the brakes. Who you have listed now for your sixth man, Shaw?
Well, and I think I'm probably cheating a little bit because I think he's actually probably going to finish in the top 5 of voting here. But I'm going to go with Derrick Rose. I think pretty much midway through the year, this award was given to Jordan Clarkson. It was a done deal, right? And there's some others that you can consider in this, and Rose may end up being maybe even a top 2 or 3. But I think for me, if that doesn't happen, he needs to get some love somewhere along the line. And this Knicks team couldn't be what they are without the acquisition of him. We were all wrong. With them getting him and Tibbs going and getting his guy. And we're like, oh, he's going to come here and suck up Quickly's minutes. He's going to be a pain in the ass as a result of that. And it's been the polar opposite. So I just want to give Derrick Rose some more flowers as well, too. No pun intended. As a result of what he's done here with this New York Knicks team. And he might end up still finishing in the top 5 because you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody who's coming off the bench making the impact that he is. But that's where I'm going with for my honorable mention here, Derrick Rose.
Oh, the pun was intended. And listen, I'll give him a bouquet. Okay, give him the bouquet. All right, that excellent pick, Derrick Rose. Mine is a tough one. Like, I'm splitting this one up. I'm splitting up between Kyle Kuzma and Joe Harris. I'm going to lean a little bit more on Joe Harris. And the only reason why I'm leaning on Joe Harris a lot is because, like, Shaquille O'Neal keeps talking about him. So if Shaquille O'Neal keeps talking...
wait a minute. So are you making Joe Harris like the 6th option award? Because he very much starts for Brooklyn like every single game. He's not coming off no bench.
He starts every single game because none of the damn guys can stay healthy, right? Like, so... Just saying.
You a wild dude.
I'm wild. Yeah,
Joe Harris is a starter for the Brooklyn Nets.
Right.
That's what he does. They have him out there to space the floor. So if we were going like the 6th option award, then I think maybe have an opportunity there.
Fair enough. All right. Well, then we'll just go with Kyle Kuzma then. All right. How about that?
All right.
We'll go with Kyle Kuzma. I just don't see Joe Harris as a he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm still thinking of our fantasy basketball league days and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you're really starting. Like I'm still waiting for you guys to keep. You know what I'm saying? Like opening up those positions.
Disrespect is out of control. This is supposed to be about respect. And here you are saying the man doesn't even start.
Well, you know what? He's getting a lot of talk up right now because of this. Right? In what space are we talking about Joe Harris as a starter? In what space are we talking about Joe Harris as a starter? In any other NBA conversation, for the exception of the fact that he is a great 3-point shooter. But our topic isn't about great 3-point shooters. Our topic was about giving awards. So you go tell me where you're going to find an award to give Joe Harris the starter for an NBA team. Where are you going to find that? Riddle me that. Don't worry. I'm a play like our man Williams. Don't worry. I'll wait. Talk to me.
See how are you going? How are you going to get hot when you're wrong? That's what I'm saying. Like you have him as a 6th man. He's starting nice every like single game.
Because I'm nice like that. All right, let's go Rookie of the Year, Shaw. Rookie of the Year. Who do you have listed?
I gotta take a minute.
Okay.
When it comes to Rookie of the Year, though, and this will again. Remember what we're talking about here, a honorable mention. So nobody's even thinking about Cole Anthony, like at all. He had a big lapse in the season because he was hurt, but he's come back and he's played extremely well at that point guard position. He didn't know what the fuck he was doing to begin the year. He had no clue.
Just like we didn't know you were going to cuss in those last 3 seconds. So it just flowed out. I understand. Just like how Cole Anthony just rolled out, that F-bomb just flowed out of you, Shaw. I got you. Go ahead.
But he had no idea what was popping. And, he took some time while he was injured, the kind of quintessential, well, let me watch the game. Let me learn the game in the interim time. And he did that. And, he hit a game winner a couple weeks ago with KCB. Had a great post-game interview. If you haven't seen it, check it out on the YouTube. My dude was wilding, and he's just oozing and bubbling with confidence. I like him. I really do. I think he's got a decent future in this league. Nothing else because he's confident. So for me, seeing from what he started as a rookie to what he's finishing up as, that's what I'm going to give him, my honorable mention, Rookie of the Year, finishing, 6th or 7th place, wherever it is in the actual rookie voting. But he's done a nice job in Orlando since coming back from injury.
I'm going to give some love to Malachi Flynn with the Toronto Raptors. I think he is a player that we need to keep our eye on. I think that Nick Nurse has a future with him and Van Fleet and where the Raptors go.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Sure.
Malachi Flynn or Peyton Pritchard, which one of those guys would you like to have?
Let me answer the question this way. You give me Peyton. You give me Peyton, not under Brad Stevens.
Oh, yikes! I got you. I feel you though.
Right? Because listen, used him a lot, but I just don't think used him effectively. You give me Malachi, though, right now, under Nick Nurse. I would probably like to see Peyton under Nick Nurse. Or maybe see Peyton with maybe, say, with Rick Carlisle. Or maybe...
I like it with Spo.
Or Spo, right. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this? Like, I understand. And listen, Danny Ainge went right on this one, on making this selection. We called it when draft night. You got to get a guy like Peyton, and he did that. But I just don't think that Stevens has used him in the way that I would have expected. And I just think that what he can contribute, what he can give you, can certainly be a hell of a lot more probably on a different team than what the Boston Celtics. And I'm not trying to blame Brad Stevens. What I'm just saying is that his style and what he's doing with that team, I think is counterintuitive to what I saw and what I was potentially going to see from what Peyton was going to bring on the court. And I think if we're talking about elevating him in a Rookie of the Year conversation, he would have to be in a different kind of offensive set or system that's going to allow him to really showcase his ability to shoot the three and to get better looks from three. Like, if I'd love to see, I know people don't like Steve Kerr out in Golden State, but I would love to see Peyton out there shooting the basketball under a Steve Kerr-like kind of offensive system. You know what I'm saying? So that to me is where I was looking at it from that perspective.
All right. Fair enough. I like that. Yeah, but I didn't mean to throw you off again with Malachi Flynn. He's done a nice job for sure. And I think
he's not going to get any love. He's not going to get any shine. Especially, right. But
they have the guard in the future. If something happens with Kyle Lowry now in the offseason, they can feel confident that Flynn can come in here.
And I think he was NBA Rookie of the Month. Was it like earlier this month? Was it April or something like that? I think he was selected as the Rookie of the Month in one of these months. So I like him. I like his potential. He's just not going to be top 3, top 5 in those conversations. Defensive Player of the Year, Shaw. Very interesting one that you've selected in this particular regard. So have at it. Who do you have selected as your Defensive Player of the Year?
So yeah, honorable mention here is the Thief, TJ McConnell. That dude is just out here.
Thief McConnell, man. Thief.
Just swiping the ball. 2.6 assists. Steals per game here. And just really just
he be stealing the ball so fast you think it's an assist. I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, a lot of his steals lead to assists, for his team. I think he's definitely one of the better backup point guards in the league. And while the Pacers season hasn't been as exciting as they'd liked it to be, it's not because McConnell hasn't been out there grinding, hustling, getting floor burns, diving at everything and jumping in the passing lanes to give the Pacers every chance and opportunity. So while his defensive rating doesn't really speak to anything, super exciting, at 110, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad at all. But it's not necessarily elite. He's a statistical defensive player of the year as more than hey, put him on the ball and he's going to just lock people up, so to speak. So I think that deserves some semblance of credit because I don't think he's going to get in the conversation when it comes to the overall conversation.
So this was a tough one for me but I'm going to fight on this one because I really don't know. It's probably the thing that sucks sometimes. I don't know if whether or not Matisse Thybulle is going to be considered as top 5. What I'm saying is that I'm sure that his name as being lauded around as a defensive specialist might merit the idea. But I think like when we talk about who would be in the runnings and the considerations, you're probably going to be putting in Giannis again, Rudy Gobert, right? Without a question. Miles Turner is going to be in that conversation. So I'm already naming off people which I think are going to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. And the fact that I don't think we truly would put Matisse Thybulle in there is a de facto saying that there's other guys ahead of him. But I think Matisse Thybulle honestly should be a top 3 player. And if he isn't already in that conversation, this to me is indicative of why he should be elevated to that space, is simply because of the fact that what he's been doing this year has been absolutely phenomenal for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'm glad that Doc Rivers recognized that and didn't pull that bullshit that he was pulling in the beginning of the season where he wasn't getting them damn minutes that he should have been getting. As far as I'm concerned, if that was what was happening from Jump Street, he probably would be considered as a top 3. This guy his steal percentage is tops in the NBA. His defensive box plus minus is tops in the NBA. This guy is a defensive stalwart, right? And so I hope that this is kind of like signs for his future to come about him being an excellent two-way player. His offense certainly has not caught up with what his defensive capabilities is reflective of. But as far as I'm concerned, the fact that I think Matisse Thybulle should be considered a top 3 person, he probably is not going to even be top 5. And that's why I would probably choose him as a Defensive Player of the Year for the Baseline Award.
Hey, way to get your young son in there. I got no issue with a little favoritism to the familial, to the little nepotism going on here.
Yeah, let it be. I have no problem with that until we have a congressional law passed that tells me I can. I'm going to damn sure do it. Milk that. Right. Milk it for what it's worth, right?
Campaign for your dues. Thybulle's a great pick as well too, and he's going to be one of the better defenders in the league for a very long time here, as alluded to. So yeah, I don't mind that one at all.
All right, Shaw. Now finally, let's talk MVP. Baseline. It's like talking in reverse, right? It's kind of like going backwards on this whole thing. So I love it. I certainly appreciate your thought process in situating our topic this week in the Baseline Awards. It's a thing. I like it.
Have a little fun, right? Yeah. And have our listeners, try to get in here with us. Like, what are these guys thinking about? I mean, if we're very linear all the time and very just straightforward, I mean, hey, Who's that fun for?
Even but Shaw, in all fairness, though, we're the ones who wear white jackets, talk about autopsying dudes and teams and stuff, right? Like, we are that team. We are the Dexters of sports podcasting right now. From the maniacal mind of Warren Shaw and Cal Gameface Lee, right?
It's a whole vibe.
It's a whole vibe.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I'd be interested to hear what some of our loyal listeners have to think about this for sure. But, when it comes to the baseline honorable mention MVP for me, it's going to be Jimmy Butler, Jimmy B for MVP. This Heat team, they'd be nowhere without Butler. And they were nowhere when he was out with the COVID issues and injuries, so forth and so forth. And the Heat team has really struggled from Dragic to Tyler Hero missing a bunch of time. The only sustainable guy really has been Bam, and he's missed even a couple of games here and there himself. But Butler's almost kind of going at triple-double rates at sometimes to kind of get things done is really what's kept the Heat alive to the point where they're going to be a very dangerous out in the playoffs. So for me, it's kind of an easy situation. He was up there at some point when the Miami Heat were actually in the 4 and 5 seed, but now that they've fallen back to the pack a little bit, his name has kind of dropped out of that conversation for MVP. And I think he should probably still be in the top 5, in that lower echelon of that, but I think he's going to miss it. So therefore we want to give him his love out here. So MVP, Jimmy B.
I want to make sure that Julius Randle gets some love. Maybe by the end of this season, he may eke into possibly a top 5, but I doubt it. So I want to make sure that I emphasize that I would use and say Julius Randle is my choice, okay? Because I know sometimes you try to put me on the spot, be like, so who's it going to be, right? You got 2-3 people listed here. I'm just saying Julius Randle is my choice. And listen, why not? And I don't need to throw out the numbers there, and I don't need to justify why not, right? The freaking Knicks are the 4th best damn team in the freaking Eastern Conference, right? So have at it, right? Please, I dare you. Challenge that shit, okay? If you really, really want to. Just be prepared. You know what I'm saying? Carry a shovel, because I'm not burying your ass. You're burying yourself. Who I really think should be in the conversation, and maybe this is our platform should be the one where we have that conversation. What about Chris Paul? I know people out in Phoenix are yelling MVP, right? But I really do think that if you look at what Chris Paul has been able to do, because it's funny to me, Shaw, Devin Booker is the best player on that team. Absolutely. And he's actually having a great season. It's an MVP-like kind of season, but he is having a great season. But the reason why the Phoenix Suns are where they are is because of what you're getting from really one of the most veteran-laden, reliable, and bulldogish basketball players ever in our generation, doing it again at a high level in a system that I think a lot of people thought was a one-hit wonder or one-season wonder in what they did coming out of that NBA restart, right? So the fact that Chris Paul is putting up the numbers that he's putting right now in Phoenix next to the best player on the team, right? And that they are the second best team in the Western Conference, to me just speaks volumes about why he should be in consideration for MVP votes. He probably will not get it. They will probably overlook him because in totality, they're trying to make the comparisons to the guys that are already top 5 finishers and numbers. But Chris Paul and what he has done to that basketball team, he's essentially transformed that basketball team. And he's put Devin Booker in a position where Devin Booker should be considered MVP candidate come next year and moving forward, right? So to me, I like to see a guy like Chris Paul be in this kind of conversation if there wasn't us already talking about the Jimmy B's and the Jimmy Butlers.
Well, I'm not the same guy. Oh, so you said Jimmy B and Jimmy V? No, I'm confused. But I think with CP3 for sure.
I didn't say Jimmy V. I said Jimmy B.
Oh, okay. Well,
my V's and B's make almost sound like they run together. You know what I'm saying? So part of my phonetic. I'm phonetically challenged. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, man. You're the linguistic master.
Oh, okay.
So, Paul is. It's interesting because I think there was a little bit of buzz for him to at least get into that considerational conversation. Maybe it's faded some. Canceling himself out because of Devin Booker. Same thing in Utah with, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Those are guys who could probably be in the honorable mention conversation for the respective teams. But I think I'm on board with you with Chris Paul and just what he means to this Phoenix roster. And yes, James Jones also did add Jay Crowder, and Booker has learned to just be more efficient as a result of Paul being there. Saric has played his role, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of great things. Bridges has come into his own. And a lot of that is also proof positive of what Monty Williams is doing. But I have no issue with Chris Paul being considered, right? And I think this is what, like I said, this is what it's about. So he may even get there. He may get there. I think when we saw him selected as an all-star over Devin Booker to begin, I was like, whoa. That's what probably brought my eyes to it from the very beginning. Is like, well, if people are looking and thinking Chris Paul deserves to be an all-star over Devin Booker, then there might be some bite to Chris Paul getting deeper consideration for MVP than Devin Booker would this year. So again, I think you're right on target with it, and we'll see where it ends up shaking out. But I know your pick was actually Julius Randle, who I also may think may end up finishing fifth. I think he's garnered enough voted, and because he's probably going to win most improved, I think he's probably going to end up being there. But either way, we need to give him love because all of these guys have done a great job this season, and they're probably still not getting enough attention for the work that they've put in.
Absolutely, man. This has been a great convo and kind of probing, if you will, into those who we think deserve to receive these accolades. And, we definitely want to hear from you guys, so by all means, weigh in at the Baseline NBA, NBA Baseline. The conversation's so good, I'm thinking backwards, man. There's my dyslexia going at it again. So definitely get at us and let us know what you think. And listen, maybe there's some players who you like to have get some shout out and get some love. And I'm going to challenge us on this part, Shaw. If we get any of our listeners to weigh in, I'm going to make sure that we actually acknowledge it on our upcoming show, because I think that there should be some definite carryover, and it should be we should be able to make sure that we spotlight some of these people that probably don't get that kind of recognition and get that same kind of chatter being thrown out there. And I would say too, we're not challenging you on what you think. We want to actually know, do you truly believe that this person should get that kind of shine? And so, hey, by all means, let us know. But next week, whoever it is that gets thrown out there, we will certainly make sure that we acknowledge and shout out those type of individuals, because I think it opens up that conversation about we care too much at times for the people that we know are already going to be at the top echelon, and we don't put enough emphasis on the people who are elevating the bottom space, right? That are trying to push their way through, trying to kind of break up the party, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Kind of crash the party, if you will. That's what we're looking for. These are guys that if we're not talking about them again, then this was 1 year of which they showed us, they have the capabilities. But I think that their names are going to be mentioned quite often over the next few seasons. And if that's the case, then these guys started where we basically took this at a baseline level. And now it's up to them for them to be in those conversations of being top three in any of these categories. Great conversation all around, brother.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So again, as always, I hope our fans and listeners enjoyed it as well. Let us know who you picks are for the honorable mention awards here. And I think we will come up with some categories of our own. I think the starters used to do some kind of wacky awards and things of that nature. I don't know how wacky we'll supposedly get, but we'll definitely do something different. So I love to do an award of something like a guy who did the most with the least. You know what I mean? So not necessarily most improved, or maybe a guy that really kind of came out of nowhere. I think a guy like Enes Kanter, this year, really because of the Nurkic injury, really stepped up, you know what I mean? And those types of things. So I think we could definitely have some fun with it. Maybe we could do it maybe towards the end of the year if we still really want to, but definitely for next year, we'll have some different ideas for this as well too. And, have the baseline honorable mention awards and maybe some other stuff to go alongside.
Absolutely. So once again, we'd like to thank you guys for hopping on board with us. Great combo this week for the Baseline. Callie Warren Show. We appreciate you guys. We do. And we'll catch up with you next time.